Alright, so I recorded this game, or I thought I did. Turns out there's some technical difficulties going on, so lost that recording. Thankfully, MTG has this wonderful feature of going back and replaying your games for you, so that's very nice. Thank you, Wizards, for that, at least. So we're gonna watch the replay. I'm gonna watch it with you. It's a little different, obviously, than what I usually do. Yeah, didn't want to miss out on this game. Well, actually, I really did want to miss out on this game, but we'll get into that. Here we go. So, alright, so we keep this hand here. It's pretty good. We've got kind of what we need. We have our Inkmoth Nexus, we have our Sigarda's Aid, we have our Steel Shaper's Gift, so we can go get our hammer at any point here. Pretty good hand, I think, to keep game one. Double Inkmoth Nexus, not terrible either. Playing our Arid Mesa, getting our Sacred Foundry untapped, so we can play our Sigarda's Aid. Now this is in case we untap and get a creature, which we don't, which is fine. Colossus Hammer, of course, grabbing that. Putting down the Shadow Spear, just to be mana efficient. Our opponent has an Archive Trap because we are up against Mill, and then surgically extracts all of our hammers. All of them. So right then and there we have a bit of a harder time with the rest of this game because we don't have our main win con. We do have an Inkmoth Nexus. We do have Shadow Spear, but Shadow Spear is only giving it +1/+1, so it does speed up the clock a little bit, but not that much. So our opponent has not done a lot, but has certainly kind of just like taken down our deck. Okay, so this happened. I put down the second Inkmoth Nexus, and I was going to use that Inkmoth Nexus to power up my original Inkmoth Nexus. But I clicked the wrong one, and so now we have a Summoning Sick Inkmoth Nexus just hanging out there. I cry a little bit, and then our opponent Fatal pushes it, and I cry a little bit more. Yeah, that's what happened there. Our opponent passes it back. We are going to try to get in there with Inkmoth Nexus. I don't know why that's so hard to say right now, but we get Fatal pushed again. So that's unfortunate. We do have Aluris, we have plenty of lands, so we're hoping to get there with that. Our opponent plays Miko Koro, so we're going to get to draw some cards. We draw our Battle Skull, not exactly what we're wanting to see. We're going to play out Luris here. Luris unfortunately does not get to get anything at the moment, though we have plenty in our graveyard. Opponent draws a card with Miko Koro, we draw Giver Runes. Hedron Crab coming down with a fetch land to go with it, which is unfortunate. So we're deciding what to play out of the graveyard. We grab our Duelist first and foremost. And we're going to play Maul of the Skyclaves, try to equip it to Luris here. It lands, and we have First Strike and Flying, which is great. Gonna get in there. Opponent cannot block, which is great. So we're at this point, we're feeling pretty good. You know, we still have quite a few cards in our deck. But this crab does some work here. This crab does a lot of work here. Hedron Crab once again. And then our opponent just, you know, casually kills our Luris. Which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world. We have this Duelist here. The biggest problem being that our opponent has this crab that can just block everything forever. But we have Magnetic Theft. So we get Maul of the Skyclave onto Duelist there and attack in for 3. Well, for 6. Our opponent is down to 7. We are down to 12 cards, though. We untap. We haven't opened the Armory that we're not going to cast. We're going to get in there with our Duelist for 8. Our opponent casts Crypt Incursion. So we have, I don't even know, I can't pull up our graveyard here, obviously, but we have 32 cards in our graveyard, and while we don't have a ton of creatures in this deck, we have enough that gaining 3 life per is pretty bad here. And at 11 cards left in our library, there is not much we can do here. I do keep it up. I don't scoop right here. But the odds are certainly not in our favor at this point. Yeah, opponent gets to crab us repeatedly. Field of Ruin kind of seals the deal here. We don't have a land to search for, and so, you know, we're just losing out on everything. We're down to 4 cards. All our opponent needs is a land next turn to just finish us off, and we have 29 damage left to go. We play out the Batterskull. We're hoping to equip it to Duelist to speed up our clock here. You know, it does make him get in for 16 damage, but then our Batterskull. Okay, so didn't realize the trigger on the Batterskull would force it to attach it to the germ. So I should have stacked the triggers in a different way there. It doesn't really make a difference here. We have 3 cards left. Again, all our opponent needs is a single land, and we are dead. So it doesn't actually do a whole lot here, but that is definitely something I should have done differently. Is stack those triggers better. But yeah, so we're gonna get in here for 8. Put our opponent down to 21. We are at an absurd life total, but it doesn't matter because we're playing mill. Yep, and then our opponent gets a land, and we are done. So let's go on to game number 2. Alright, we are on to game number 2. Unfortunately, I don't get to show you my sideboarding prowess here, but what I forgot to do was just bring in everything, because you can when you're playing against Mill. I brought in Ley Lines, and I think I actually brought in our Graveyard Hate as well, just to get rid of, like, you know, fodder for Crypt Incursion and things like that. Because that can be relevant. Also, their card draw spell is based on how many cards you have, Drown in the Lock, things like that. So Graveyard is actually weirdly important for Mill, so something to keep in mind. There are certain Graveyard cards you won't want to bring in against them, but if you can kind of incidentally bring them in. And again, it's Mill, so bringing in more cards is not necessarily bad. So this is game 2. We get to play first. We have some real bad hands, but, you know, we get there with this one. Arid Mesa into Sacred Foundry, into Sigarda's Aid, which is a pretty nice start. We're hoping to draw a creature on the following turn. Our opponent gets Archive Trap us, unfortunately, so for free, always great. Opponent plays a Boro. Opponent gets down the Ruin Crab as well. We put down our Giver of Runes to potentially protect our Inkmoth Nexus on the following turn. Opponent casts Bloodchief's Thirst to kill our Giver of Runes. We get in there with a hammer, attach it, and our opponent scoops it up. So funny thing about this, we did not attach it during combat, which we should have. Sigarda's Aid gives you Flash, which sometimes I forget about. And so what you really want to do is you want to attack in first and then flash it in, especially because our opponent's tapped out. There's nothing they can do about it. So the win is, you know, pretty much there. For whatever reason, our opponent scoops here, and I think they didn't realize that the Colossus Hammer makes Inkmoth Nexus lose flying. So they technically could have blocked and survived a turn, and in fact it would have been harder for us to win next turn because we don't have another way to attach the hammer to Inkmoth Nexus. So make sure you're doing your triggers right, because, you know, and reading your cards. Reading the card explains the card. Alright, game number 3. Game number 3. We are going to keep this hand. It looks, honestly, it looks basically exactly what we want. We have turn 2 Duelist. We just need to, turn 1 Duelist, turn 2 Stoneforge to get our hammer. Turn 3, we can Outfitter on the Duelist and slam that hammer down. Which is exactly what we want to do, but we'll see if we can get there. So our opponent plays Prismatic Vista and passes. We draw our Inkmoth Nexus, which is also not terrible. It's another threat to have. We get down our Duelist and pass it back to our opponent. Opponent cracks the Vista, grabbing a Snow-Covered Swamp, and of course, Fatal Pushes Core Duelist. Which is not the worst. This was not the worst. We do have the Inkmoth Nexus. Cast a Hedron Crab here. and is going to pass it back. We are going to Stoneforge Mystic. Sorry, the footage skipped a little ahead there. So, opponent played Hedron Crab. We played Stoneforge Mystic, grabbed our hammer, as was the plan. Played our Inkmoth Nexus for the turn. Then we're going to pass it back, of course. Opponent, of course, has the Archive Trap. And, of course, they mill one of our Colossus Hammers. So what are they going to do? They're going to surgically extract our Colossus Hammer. Now, maybe the correct line here was to go and get a different artifact. Like, maybe we should have just gone and gotten Batterskull. Obviously, in hindsight, that would have been better 100%. I don't know if in the dark it is correct. Maybe it is. Maybe something to keep in mind with surgical extraction. Because obviously, if we go and get the Batterskull, they can't do anything about it. Batterskull does get Fatal Push, though, so it's not necessarily, like, foolproof. We also have a second Stoneforge Mystic, so I was hoping that we'd also be able to get another equipment here. They have hit 2 of our hammers and the Batterskull itself, so we do have a couple other artifacts to go and get. But also, I actually sideboarded correctly this time around, and I did put in a bunch of stuff from the sideboard. So yeah. Colossus Hammer enters the Exile Zone. Opponent untaps, plays a Dark Slick Shores, targeting us with their Hedron Crab. Doesn't attack, because they're a coward. And passes it back to us. We draw Steel Shaper's Gift, which we're not too excited about. Alright, so we kind of had a glitch in the Matrix a little bit there. And the footage that MTGO kept skipped a couple turns. So just to kind of go over what has happened, we did not end up playing our second Stoneforge Mystic. Instead, we got down the Shadow Spear. We played out the Core Outfitter, and our opponent got down a Mesmeric Orb on us. So that was the beginning of some real bad news. We are down to 15 cards after all of those Archive Traps, double Archive Traps. So we really need to get the beatdown on quick, and this Mesmeric Orb is gonna make that difficult. Alright, so we did end up finding the Skyclave Apparition. We grabbed their Mesmeric Orb because we certainly needed to. We are going to attack in with everything here. We did not attach the Shadow Spear. Hindsight again, I think maybe we should have focused on just attacking with real damage as opposed to attacking with the Infect as well. Like we could have gotten in just one more regular damage that way. I was hoping we might be able to find a way to pump the Inkmoth Nexus, or that the Inkmoth Nexus, could get us there even if they have a Crypt Incursion. But, hindsight being 2020, well, you'll see. You'll see. So we attack in, we get our opponent down a little bit more. They're down to 11 at this point. None of our creatures are very good. And then our opponent plays Maddening Cacophony on their turn. So, yep, we mill 8 cards out of our 13. So we are down to 5. We are going to attack once more. We have we've given our Skyclave Apparition the Shadow Spear. Our opponent does block this time around. One other thing I realized too was that I should have given Stoneforge the Shadow Sphere. That way any of their blocks does kill the crab. And giving it to the Skyclave Apparition was kind of just whatever. I was hoping to get in like more damage that way. But I think it would have been better to give the Shadow Sphere to Stoneforge, forcing them to block, and then kill the crab. But that didn't happen. So. Our opponent takes a little bit of damage down to 6, and then plays a Mesmeric Orb, which of course drains out our entire library, which was only 5 cards to begin with. So yeah, that's the end of that one, unfortunately. I do apologize for the recording. Obviously, this is not how we usually do things around here at High Ground MTG, but I did want to at least put this match out there. It was part of our league, and I did lose pretty hard, so, who doesn't like to see that? Alright, thanks everybody for watching. If you haven't already, click that like button, click that subscribe button and leave us a comment down below. Like I said, this will not be the norm, but I didn't want to miss out on this one because it did happen as much as I would like to pretend it didn't. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for watching High Ground MTG with co-hosts Kai Guy and Spiny Mouse. If you enjoyed the content, please be sure to click that like button, and if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on future episodes of High Ground MTG. For even more videos, be sure to check out our playlists so that you can have the high ground.